Hi, everyone. So, I have a question for you today. Would you take a pay cut for a new job if it gave you more flexibility, or it aligned with your values, or it promised growth? We're going to talk about that today because LinkedIn released a new survey. The results were very interesting because 40% of job seekers said yes, they would take a pay cut under certain circumstances. So today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of a pay cut and how you might think about that, what framework you should use if you find yourself in this situation. Hi, I'm Shelley Piedmont, a former recruiter turned career coach, and I want you to thrive and not just survive your job. So let's talk about the numbers that LinkedIn found because it was really interesting. So they divided it up between people that were in a job search and those that were not in a job search. And for those in a job search, there were three categories where 40% of the respondents said yes, they would take a pay cut. That was a really amazing number to me. Now, the three areas were values alignment, very important. Do the values align with their why? The second one was flexibility. And that could be anything from being able to go to a doctor's appointment without it being a crisis to maybe, being able to work from home some days a week. And then the last one was the ability for growth, kind of that promotion. And that was another one where job seekers said, yeah, you know what? I'll take a pay cut for the opportunity for that. Now, when it came to how much of a pay cut, this is where it got really interesting. 20% said they would take up to a 5% pay cut. And if you're at the top end of salaries, that can still be quite a lot. But interesting, 4% said that they would do 20% or more. Now, most people were kind of in the middle there, but that just goes to show how important those particular motivators were. If you compare the group that were not in a job search currently, yes, they would take a pay cut for, the same reasons, but the percentage, that was a lot lower. Anywhere from 13 to 16% lower who would agree for that. Now, that tells you a little bit about what the current hiring situation is and how people feel about finding a better place for themselves. If you like this content, I always appreciate hitting that like button and go ahead and subscribe to my channel. It really helps. So let's talk about why you may want to take a pay cut, because there could be reasons where this does make sense for you. The first thing is you're taking a long-term look at your career, and there might be some things that this opportunity gives you that could be important. And that could be maybe this organization is growing a lot, and you want to hitch your wagon to that because you think that's going to take you far. Or maybe you're breaking into a new industry or new role and you feel like this will be an opportunity and you want to go ahead and prove yourself knowing that long term this is going to help you. Or it could be that you're going to get a different set of skills or a different set of expertise that is going to be very valuable to you. Or it could be that you're going to be with a boss or a leadership team that's going to be able to promote you, and that's very valuable to you. So those could be strategic reasons. Another group of reasons could be because where you are is a problem for you. So maybe you are in a toxic environment. It's really, really bad. And to extricate yourself from that, you may want to take a pay cut for an organization that's going to be better. That makes sense. Or it could be that you have a bad commute or something else that is a problem for your life, and therefore this organization will do something better for your life. That can be for sure. It could be that the organization has financial issues and you're worried about being laid off. And so you would rather go to a place that potentially has more stability. And then it could be that the environment is just really, really stressful. And You maybe even want to take a step back. Maybe you are a people manager and you want to be an individual contributor. So those are reasons why it may make sense for you to do this. Another reason is perhaps the salary is actually a little less, but your total compensation package may be actually richer than where you are now. Things like healthcare premiums or contributions to retirement accounts, or even something like a perk like a sabbatical. Those things actually could be worth quite a lot. And therefore, when you look at the total package, you might go, you know what? I actually am going to make more, even though my base is less, because of the opportunities with this organization. That can be a strategic reason. So we talked about the pros, but the list of cons actually is long too. Now, the first and the most important one is, can you actually live on this money? Now, if you've got mortgage or rent or student loans or other things, then you might find that actually you aren't going to be able to cover the bills, or you can cover the necessary ones, but you have nothing extra. One of the things I do with my clients is when we're looking at opportunities, we have to put in a need being, what is the minimum salary you can take? Because you got to pay the bills. And if the pay cut isn't going to pay the bills, that's going to be a huge problem for your life. So that's one con. The second thing is, it's possible that you're getting played by that organization. They may be making a lot of promises to you, like all this growth, there's going to be flexibility, all this is good, and they're painting this big picture for you, but you're going to have to take a pay cut. And then you find out it was just all a bunch of smoke. There was nothing behind it. That does happen. Organizations do fool the people that they are hiring. So always be careful of that. Ask a lot of questions. The third thing is that the financial impact may be deeper than you think. So let's talk about long term. You take a pay cut, it's going to take you a while to get back to where you are or last were. And if you have financial goals, it's going to take you even longer to get there potentially. And think about it, annual increases, what are they? Maybe 3%? Well, if you took a 10% pay cut, it's going to take you a while to even get back to even. Another thing to think about is the future, retirement accounts that you have. Now, oftentimes, your 401k, you would put a percentage in, and hopefully your employer puts in some money. And if they have it based on a percentage of your salary, that could go down. But even if it's not the case, you might not be able to put in as much as you had before because you're making less money. And so the match might even be lower because of that. So these are all things to think about, because compounding of that is magic. And that would potentially allow you to retire earlier or have more money when you retire. So thinking about a pay cut, thinking also about what does that mean for your financial goals. So if you're in this situation, how would you know how to really think about this? Well, this is a framework that I use. The first thing is, look at what is your financial floor. What is the minimum that you need to pay your bills? And to have a little cushion. You still want to put money into savings. You still want to be able to go out to restaurants and other fun things. So what is the financial floor? What do you absolutely have to make? Know that number. And then look at the total package. As someone who used to be in HR, I used to tell people all the time, look at the total compensation for this position, because you may find that it actually adds additional money that you didn't count on for that particular organization and that job. So look at your health benefits, look at insurance, look at retirement, look at the time off policy, look at the flexibility, look at money for development. All those things that can make it worth it. The next thing is, if you're looking for growth, that's really important for you. Well, What does this organization do for promotions? How do they grow their people? What is a possible timeline for that? And what possibly would be the additional money associated with that promotion? You'll want to know that to make a good assessment of whether this makes sense for you. Another thing to look at is your personal situation, because everyone's situation is going to be different. Are you single and you can move to maybe a lower cost housing? Would that make sense for you? Or are you a family that have kids in college and you've got tuitions to pay and you need to make a certain amount of money? You need to look at your own situation to know if that makes sense. And then lastly, you can look at whether you have an exit strategy. So if you are banking on growth, for example, then how long are you going to wait for that to happen? Is that something that is reasonable for you? And if it doesn't happen, do you have some ideas of what you're going to do instead? It's always good if you're planning for, something to happen, in this new job and you find that it doesn't, that you've already thought about, well, how can I possibly extricate myself from this and get back on the plan that I originally was on? I want to talk about a special situation, and that is for those of you who have been out of work, 6, 9, 12 months. The longer you're out of work, there is more bias against you. You would think that people would understand, but there's still a lot of bias. And so that works against you. Plus, you may have depleted a lot of your savings and you really need the money. In those cases, it may very well make sense for you to take a pay cut. You just need to stabilize your life, stabilize your career. What you can do, knowing that it's not the amount of money that you want to make, less than what you were making before, is have a strategy for how you can think about getting another job. I know going back into the job market is not what you want, and maybe this job would work out for you. But if you know ahead of time that long term it won't, then think about how you might go back into the market and try to find yourself a better job at a later date. So taking a pay cut could be the right thing for you if it strategically makes sense for your goals and your financial situation. Now, for others, it may not make sense, and that's okay. Like many things in life, it's going to depend on your particular situation. Always do what makes sense for you and your career. So have you ever taken a pay cut and had it work out for you? Let me know in the comments.